Welcome to the Board of Education's November 10th regular session meeting. Please stand as we observe a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Satterfield.
The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. McMillan is running a little late, but he should be here shortly. And Mr. Watson is unable to join us tonight. Veterans Day will be celebrated all across our nation tomorrow, and I want to take just a moment to recognize and thank all of our service members and veterans, as well as their family and friends who have served our country so well. Our schools will be open tomorrow, and we will be sharing lessons and holding special events in honor of these amazing heroes. Just a reminder that Knox County Schools will be closed for the Thanksgiving holidays, November 24th through the 26th. We wish a wonderful holiday to all of our students, family, staff, and community. The Joint Education Committee will meet on Wednesday, November 17th at 11 a.m. in the Andrew Johnson Building boardroom. There's also a policy review meeting at the same location that day at 1:30 p.m. Board members, do we have any changes to the agenda?
To approve.
So a motion to approve by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Satterfield. All in favor?
Aye.
And Superintendent Thomas, would you like to recognize we have some special guests tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's always a pleasure to recognize our folks and our students for their accomplishments. So tonight we have several, and I would ask the entire board, to join me afterwards for photos. It's a little bit more awkward in here than it is across the street, so we'll do all the photos together after we make the recognitions here. On September 30, Centro Hispano of East Tennessee recognized members of the community with its annual Latino Awards. Knox County Schools was well represented, and we are extremely proud that our nominees won 2 of the 3 award categories. Veronica Caldron Speed, an English language learner teacher at Hardin Valley Academy, was named the Latino Community Leader Award winner for her contributions as a catalyst for meaningful change in the Latino community. During her time at Hardin Valley, she established the Latino Student Alliance to give a voice to Latino students. She's also established partnerships with the Latino Student Success Coalition and Centro Hispano. So congratulations, Veronica. If you could please stand so we could recognize you. Congratulations. And we'll get a photo and have a certificate for you here in just a few minutes. The Welcome Center of Knox County Schools, which serves as a centralized location for our non-English speaking families, was recognized as a Latino Ally Award winner for going above and beyond to serve and further the opportunities of the Latino community. The staff at the Welcome Center works hard to build trust with our non-English speaking families and to provide them with the resources and language support they need to be successful. Congratulations to ELL Supervisor Ina Slisher, Welcome Center Manager Jason Cantrell, and to all of our family community liaisons. So if you folks would please stand so we can recognize you. Congratulations, and again, thank you for the excellent job that you do every day for our students and families. So meaningful, so thank you. All right. As you know, we've been working on a community initiative with Ford Next Generation of Learning and Knox Education Foundation to transform our high schools so that all of our students are better prepared for success after graduation. On October 20, more than 150 school and community stakeholders met and mapped out a shared vision to begin this process, including nearly 24 students from 7 Knox County high schools. Those high schools are Austin East, Bearden, Central, Farragut, Fulton, Hardin Valley, and Carnes. This evening, we wanted to take a moment to recognize these students for their participation and for sharing their experiences and ideas for the future. While not all of the students were able to be here tonight, I would like to specifically recognize the following students who are in attendance, and my list may not be complete, but hopefully it is. So if you would please stand as I call your name and remain standing until everyone's called, then we will certainly celebrate your support and your help for this endeavor that we're doing. So let me get started with Sydney Allen. Sydney here. Okay. Ella Blair. Okay. Justice Hayes. Okay. Riley Keegan. Emily Seibel. And Leonard Weaver. Leonard here? Okay. Again, a round of applause for their students that provided so much help. Thank you, and I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the student voice in the work that we do, and appreciate each of you for taking your time to give input to this process. So now, we'll do the pictures, the photos in the order of which we did. So Veronica will be first. So board members, if you would, join me in the center, and Veronica. We get
And we have Robert Gowan and Elizabeth Millsaps here today for our government relations and legislative update.
Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. We have a 25-page PowerPoint that we're going to go through very quickly. And we've done this in Shelby County already, and we got through in about 10 minutes. And what we did is just describe real briefly what the bill does. And if you have any questions, stop us, and we'll try to answer any questions. But before we get into just quick background on CLASS, the organization we represent at the legislature. CLASS is a coalition of the 4 large urban school systems. Was established here in Knoxville in 2006. We represent both the administration and school board members as legislation is going through in Nashville. And since we were here last time, there have been 4 legislative sessions. The first was held in January. It was a special session to address learning loss. There were 3 bills that were passed. Very quickly, the first bill we call the summer school bill, and that set up the requirements for the summer school classes that were held for the first time this summer under this new law to address learning loss. The second bill is the hold harmless bill on TCAP results for the 2020-2021 school year. And the last bill that passed is a literacy bill that outlines how literacy is taught from kindergarten through the 3rd grade.
And then in our regular session this year, there were a broad range of topics that were addressed by the General Assembly. We have a list here that we'll look through a couple of those. There were several discussions around curriculum as it relates to gender, sexuality. We want to make sure that parents are aware of the information that students are receiving in schools. There is specific legislation to require student athletes to participate in a sports team based on their gender assigned at birth. I think we've already seen some court challenges around that this year, so that's certainly something we'll be watching to see if the legislature has to come back and take additional action to address. There are some more flexibility around social emotional learning, and then the STEM Advancement Act. There was a specific bill in place to prohibit Common Core, designated curriculum. Another bathroom requirement bill we've highlighted here. And then a particular topic of discussion this year was 3rd grade retention, that we all understand that kids who are not performing well in 3rd grade are going to struggle as they move forward. And the Commissioner of Education and the Governor have spent a lot of time, energy, and resources in focusing on improving those 3rd grade outcomes. And a lot of those resources are tied toward retention for all students in 3rd grades who are not performing at grade level. We know that sometimes there are reasons, and parents may have other wishes for their own children, and the legislature has made it clear that they think that parents should be able to weigh in on those decisions for their children. So this creates some flexibility for parents to weigh in around that retention.
And then during the regular session, we had several bills related to vaccination. Public Chapter 369 creates some exemptions for vaccinations. There was several bills, such Public Chapter 471 related to the Textbook Commission, and that sets up a waiver process. And then Public Chapter 479, the last bill on that slide, requires all districts to have an open enrollment period where students can apply to go to schools that they're not zoned for.
You all have the good fortune of already having a robust open enrollment plan, so we'll already be in compliance without a great deal of effort.
Public Chapter 493 deletes any references and creates a specific prohibition on critical race theory being taught in our schools. There was a specific component to change the way that charter school employees can participate in group insurance plans to offer more flexibility to those charter schools. Then Public Chapter 490 creates a path by which schools transition out of the ASD. The ASD, as you know, has returned or is in the process of returning schools back to their original districts, and this clarifies that.
Public Chapter 398 is another hold harmless bill, and this is related to the ADM loss that almost every district experienced during the pandemic. Last year, there were about 30,000 fewer students who were counted into ADM for the 2021 school year. This bill held districts harmless as far as BEP distribution. I will mention, we'll talk about this a little bit later, there were some very strong feelings, and a lot of statements said that this was the only year that the legislature was prepared to hold districts harmless in this way. Public Chapter 589 allows the per pupil spending to follow the student when they are a resident at a residential mental health facility.
Public Chapter 96 specifically addresses the authority and who can make decisions to open and close a school during a public health emergency, and gives you all very specific authority to do so. Public Chapter 452 requires that a student who requests privacy in a restroom based on concerns around gender usage has the right to petition a school system and ask for a private restroom facility. Public Chapter 453 requires posted signs if you allow people to use restrooms for their gender of choice versus their gender assigned at birth.
Public Chapter 513 is another vaccination bill. It is specific to the COVID-19 vaccination and prohibits mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations. We'll talk about some other bills that were passed in the just ended special session also related to this. Public Chapter 519 requires districts to post your curriculum on the internet.
Public Chapter 161 clarifies some of the rules around reporting of child abuse to make sure that if a child has a concern about a parent or guardian, that parent or guardian is not notified without going through appropriate DCS protocols to offer additional protections for our kids. Public Chapter 188 creates immunity for teachers from civil action if a child is injured during an appropriate disciplinary situation. And then if we want to look at Public Chapter 211, creates some flexibility around teacher licensure to allow teachers to teach a subject for a short period of time if you don't have a licensed teacher for that subject. There's a specific definition of teacher for the purposes of teacher raises each year in Public Chapter 248 to make sure that those raises are first prioritized with people who spend more than 50% of their time in the classroom. Public Chapter 261 says that the school is considered closed under certain circumstances for the purposes of how you determine your teacher leave or use of paid or accrued leave time, paid leave time, excuse me.
Public Chapter 287 requires training on detection of human trafficking, training for teachers. Public Chapter 326 is another bill related to temporary teaching permits. Then Public Chapter 552 allows students to take a new exam rather than retaking the ACT exam, and it's a work-ready exam that would give the student a certificate that they could use when they start to look for a job. Public Chapter 578 is a new turnaround pilot program. The state's going to identify half a dozen schools, priority schools that will be a part of this pilot. And what they will do is identify a consultant to come in and work with the school for 3 years to try to turn the school around. But that is a limited time on that pilot program.
It's also a voluntary program, so it'll be principals who want to have this additional intervention in their building.
Public Chapter 595 establishes the Mental Health Endowment Fund. $250 million of the state's rainy day reserve will be used to fund this, and the idea is the earnings off of this would be used to fund mental health programs and projects in local school districts.
Public Chapter 125 on page 16 creates a path for reciprocity for teachers who are licensed in other states, who previously would have had to retest to be licensed in Tennessee. Public Chapter 310 streamlines the procurement process a little bit so that it allows you some more flexibility around your procurement process. Public Chapter 335 offers some additional protection around your school safety plans and cybersecurity to make sure that those are not shared in a way that someone nefarious might be able to access them, and adds additional cybersecurity requirements into your school safety plans. Public Chapter 378 changes the notification date when you have to notify a teacher of when they may be dismissed or reassigned at the end of a school year. Public Chapter 417 creates certain exemptions for people with criminal backgrounds who work in schools, and primarily that is something that may have happened 20 years in the past with no further incidents, that the legislature talked very openly about how we all may have made bad decisions in the past but have worked hard to turn our lives around and shouldn't be perpetually punished for that.
But that bill does specifically reference a 20-year look back. If the offense is more than 20 years old and it did not involve a minor
Or violence.
You'd be able to offer that person a job. And I think the last slide we have dealing with the regular session is the budget slide. There's $120 million for teacher salaries, $70 million for BEP growth. And you can see the rest of those numbers, including the $250 million investment in the Mental Health Trust Fund. There was also in the first special session $86 million appropriated to help pay for some of the requirements of the summer school. And then I guess 2 weeks ago, we were in the last special session, the second special session of October, and that slide has what we refer to as the COVID-19 omnibus bill. And we know you've heard a lot about this bill. There's been a question whether and when the governor would sign the bill. He said this afternoon that he would sign the bill and indicated he would sign that on Friday. And that's important because every part of this bill becomes effective as soon as he signs it. And I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of the provisions. It does prohibit school districts from mandating COVID-19 vaccines and prohibits adverse action if a person refuses or does not receive the vaccine. The next issue is mask mandates, prohibits mask mandates unless the governor has declared a state of emergency allowing mask mandates. And also there has to be a 14-day rolling average of 1,000 per 100,000 residents in the county. It is measured by the county. And even if those things are in place, the mandate would have to be requested by the school principal to the district school board. If that's approved, the district would have to provide N19 masks to persons, so that's everybody that would be coming into the school 12 years or older, and similar masks to the N19 mask would have to be provided to anybody younger than 12. And the part where a lot of people have been speculating may be challenged, there's an allowance for an ADA opt-out, and the way the bill is drafted, it may be in conflict with federal law. But those are the provisions around the mask mandate. The other part of the bill gives the Commissioner of Health sole authority to determine quarantine guidelines. And then the bill prohibits any use of public funds for enforcement of federal COVID-19 related mandates. I'll stop right there, see if there are any questions. Again, it's our understanding the governor is going to sign that bill later this week.
The second big piece of legislation from our special session last week was Senate Bill 9009, which allows for the partisan election of school boards. That will be determined by your local party chairs, that it allows both a partisan or nonpartisan option, but your local Democrat and Republican parties will determine whether or not they want to have a primary for each of your races. And political parties will nominate those candidates based on the rules that they have in their local party. So some may be an elected primary and some may be a closed election within active members of party leadership, depending on how your county is structured.
And before we talk about issues that we're going to be watching in 2022, I want to give a quick update on the Education Savings Account. That program is still funded in the state budget. The money's still in the base budget. It has not been spent for the 2 years that bill's been in effect because of the challenge from Shelby and Davidson County. The Supreme Court heard an oral argument in that lawsuit in June. We're still waiting for the opinion. So that is yet to be implemented. So we want to share this list. I think there are 2 more slides after this one of issues that we're going to be watching in 2022. First is BEP. As you know, the governor has appointed several committees to take a look at redoing the state's K-12 funding formula. And all indications are that they are planning to file a bill in January or February after the work of those committees. And I think there are 2 or 3 more town halls. And I guess the biggest question that's not been answered definitively is whether there will be a significant amount of new investment in K-12. We understand there's going to be a reconfiguration of the formula, but I guess we'll have to wait and see when the governor submits his budget at the end of January to see exactly what's going to be proposed. We've already talked about ADM hold harmless in the bill that was passed back in the spring that did hold districts harmless for ADM loss. It's our understanding from a meeting or some comments at a BP review committee a couple of weeks ago, there are even more than 30,000 students less in the system this year. So I'm not sure what the situation is in Knox County, but it looks like the students that we lost have not come back, and there are more students that have left the public school system. We're not sure exactly what that number is. In our conversations with leadership, especially in the House, They have indicated that mental health is going to be a big issue that they continue to address. And one of the ways they have talked about possibly addressing that is funding more nurses and counselors. So that's something that we have pushed for several years. So we hope that this is the year that they finally lower those ratios. And one issue, I guess a combined issue, the issue of attendance was the subject of a day-long discussion, summer study back in September. And so we expect that there to be legislation brought about chronic absenteeism and truancy. Truancy has been a subject of recent legislation. But there is a concern that even before COVID, that the instances of chronic absenteeism were too high across the state. And that's an issue we learned in the summer study. It's not necessarily something aimed at the urban districts. It's a problem all across the state. And then after the new required summer school, we are hearing that there may be proposals for year-round school. Obviously, that will cost money. We think more than the $86 million that was appropriated for summer school this year, but that is something that we've heard from several legislators that they are interested in discussing.
Testing is a perennially hot topic at the legislature, and we feel like this year, after the legislature having accommodated a lot of flexibility around testing, that it's something they will talk about quite intensely. We will still look at additional hold harmless penalties for teachers, students, classrooms, school buildings. We'll look at a testing calendar. I think that part of the discussion of year-round school means that testing window may look different next year because of where our calendar days might fall. Testing time limits and paper and online testing are a hot topic that I know that it's much easier and faster to score results on an online test, but there are a number of legislators, particularly in rural areas, who don't feel that is appropriate for students just yet, that they don't necessarily have the online skills that they might need. So we anticipate a lot of discussion around that this year. We also saw a lot of discussion last year around ACT in lieu of 10 Ready, that's already a nationally accredited test. Every student takes it already. Maybe we could use that in place of 10 Ready, as 10 Ready has struggled with some implementation in the past, so we'll continue to look for those. We have to be certain that we are prepared to meet new additional federal standards for average measurable objectives. And I think that there is a policy discussion around shifting from standardized testing to progress monitoring to see how students grow throughout the year, which certainly for younger children is something that I think we all would love to see more robust discussion around. The legislature has strong feelings about TVOS, and we know that TVOS is important to monitor growth in successful schools. It's important to see changes in schools that are struggling. So we will be watching to see how the legislature deals with looking at TVOS again next year.
On those last two issues, I'll mention real quickly, we have spent in the last 10 or 15 years, I've been involved with education policy. We spend a lot of time paying attention to what Florida does. And you may have seen a few weeks ago, Governor DeSantis proposed a shift away from standardized testing to progress monitoring and evaluation of teachers, and spoke very strongly against continuing standardized tests. So it'll be interesting to see if that becomes a national conversation. But that's the end of our presentation. Be glad to try to answer any questions.
We have one more. Sorry, we have one
Okay.
more. Our presentation is very long. We try not to give you guys so much information all at once, but there's just been a lot this year. We will monitor the use of TANF funds in schools this year. That Tennessee has a large reserve of temporary assistance for needy families, and there are some specific school services that may fall under that umbrella. So we'll be watching as the legislature develops their process. The legislature has allocated a certain portion of those TANF dollars for grant programs. So we'll be watching to see if there are school services that fall underneath that umbrella. Class size ratios are something that we're going to look at The legislature has talked quite a bit about flexibility around class sizes. A through F grading for school buildings is a perennial topic of discussion here at the legislature that was postponed this past year because of all the hold harmless provisions for COVID. We anticipate that will be something that will be discussed again. State takeover is something that we feel will be a hot topic this year, that there have been a number of legislative leaders who have expressed concerns about individual schools and school districts' COVID policies, and we anticipate them bringing some legislation to try and put more controls on some districts around that, so we'll be watching to see how those fold out.
And we perennially list the last two because we know these have been issues in Knox County, particularly the portfolio model for teacher evaluation and required physical education. On required physical education, this is the first school year that law that was passed probably 3 years ago now has actually been in effect. And there were a lot of school districts that woke up in June and realized they were going to have to hire a lot of PE teachers. That was not the assumption that was put forth whenever that bill was being passed. We know that you had that experience, or you realized that a lot earlier than a lot of other districts, but we expect some discussion on that because this is the first year that that's been implemented.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question on slide 15. It's Public Chapter 552, the Tennessee Work Ready Opportunity Program. Did you say that there's an opportunity for students to take a Work Ready test rather than the ACT? So the ACT that's currently required for all students to take, there's another option? Is that correct?
This would be the second, if they were going to take the ACT for a second time, the second test could be this Work Ready test.
So they do still have to take the ACT?
Still have to take the ACT one time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure everybody understands that while this is a lot of information, the bills that they follow for us each year, there are hundreds of them, literally. And they follow those bills and look at all of the possible implications for our large 4 school districts. And they meet with us, with representatives from those large districts every Friday to find out if there are other implications that maybe they are not aware of. And we all can discuss those and determine what our priorities are to really let our legislators know how those bills can impact our school districts. So the work that they're doing for us is really huge. I'm not sure we would ever be able to follow those hundreds of bills on our own. So it's really greatly appreciated, and thank you for traveling all the way here tonight.
Ms. Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I know that we, have TSBA as a service, and I know the work that you put in, but I am curious for my own records, like, what is the cost of your services to KCS? Like, what do we pay you guys?
The cost of our annual fee, we charge each district $37,500.
Thank you.
And it's been that since we started working for you in 2009.
So does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank y'all.
And traveling and for the update. Thank you.
As the parents of public school children, we appreciate getting to come and see you guys celebrating your own kids and seeing the work that you're doing. So we enjoy working for you and are glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on to the regular agenda, just a reminder that the board had a detailed discussion on all agenda items at the September 29th work session meeting. And Ms. Coatney, we will turn it over to you for the agenda.
Item 8, consent agenda.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Satterfield, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9A, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy D100, Fiscal Management Goals and Objectives as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9B, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-121, Enrollment in College-Level Courses as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9C, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-130, Work-Based Learning as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9D, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-140, Homebound Instruction as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9E, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-171, Interscholastic Athletics as amended.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9F, approve second reading to rescind Knox County Board of Education Policy I-180, Adult Apprenticeship Program.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
9G, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-190, Organization for Instruction as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9H, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-210, Textbook and Instructional Materials Selection, Distribution, and Care as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9I, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-250, Off-Campus Trips as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9J, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-290, ESL Program Policy as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
9K, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-370, Graduation Requirements as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9L, approve second reading of Knox County Board of Education Policy I-440, Wellness Policy, Nutritional Standards for Food Items Sold as amended.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9M, approve second reading to rescind Knox County Board of Education Policy I-441, Wellness Policy, Physical Activity.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Babb, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
10A, approve receipt of Tennessee Department of Education Safe Schools Grant for the 2021-2022 school year in the amount of $1,306,422.31, with required matching funds in the amount of $474,950 that will be provided by in-kind services.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Babb. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
10B, approve receipt of Tennessee Arts Commission student ticket subsidy grants for the various Knox County schools in the total amount of $48,731 designated to tickets and related costs for in-person or virtual field trips to art events.
So moved.
Second.
So motion by Ms. Owen, a second by Ms. Bab. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
10C, approve receipt of Dollar General Literacy Foundation grants for Adrian Burnett Elementary School, Cedar Bluff Elementary School, Inskip Elementary School, and Hardin Valley Academy, in the total amount of $10,000 to be used as outlined in each school's proposal.
So moved.
So motion by Ms. Owen, a second by Ms. Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
10D, approve receipt of Tennessee Foundation for Agriculture in the Classroom grant for Southfield Middle School in the amount of $250 to be used for the school's outdoor classroom.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Satterfield, a second by Ms. Bab. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
10E, approve user agreement and UWorld AP Success Grant for student licenses to an ACT learning platform for the 2021-2022 school year, valued at $10,800 for Austin East Magnet High School.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Satterfield, a second by Ms. Bab. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
10F, approve donation of 1.1 acres of land from the Little Rabbit Holdings LLC located at Clinton Highway, parcel ID tax ID 055052, with a tax appraisal of $52,700.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Bab, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11A, approve contracts with E-Loop Green Company Incorporated, Helton and Associates Incorporated, and Neo Corporation for provision of asbestos abatement and demolition services for the term of December 1, 2021 through November 30th, 2022, which may be extended for an additional 4 years, not to exceed a cost of $500,000 annually, using maintenance and operation general purpose funds.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Bab, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12A, approve fiscal year 2022 general purpose budget line item transfers in the amount of $85,589 for the period July 1, 2021 to September 30th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Bab. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12B, approve fiscal year 2022 capital improvement plan budget line item transfers in the amount of $103,540.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Bab, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12C, approve increase of $85,200.07 to amount of construction contract with Merritt Construction Incorporated for renovations and additions at Powell High School.
Second.
So motion by Ms. Bounds, a second by Ms. Bab. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12D, approve increase of $100,000 to amount of construction contract with Path Construction Northeast Incorporated for the Gibbs High School Stadium Replacement Project.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Mr. McMillan, a second by Ms. Bounds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12E, approve schematic design of West High School softball facility by George Armour Ewart, architect.
So moved. Second.
So a motion by Ms. Bab, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12F, accept annual charter school monitoring report for Emerald Academy.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Bab, a second by Ms. Owen. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12G, approve second amendment to charter school agreement with Emerald Academy.
So moved. Second.
So motion by Ms. Bab, a second by Ms. Horn. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12H, discussion and possible action on superintendent search.
So moved.
Second.
So So a motion by Ms. Satterfield, a second by Ms. Henderson. And Ms. Satterfield, did you want to
Yes,
speak to this?
thank you. We will also need to take, we'll take 2 votes within this conversation. But before we go there, I also want to bring your attention to what the website will look like starting first thing tomorrow morning. That's the screenshot of these 2 pieces of paper here. So be sure to look over that, and if you have any questions about the timeline and the search. So, Gary, I'm going to present 2 different motions. So I should start with the first one, within this conversation of the vote that we're in, right? All right, cool. Everyone know what we're doing.
That's what I would recommend. I mean, you could just take one vote, but if somebody wanted to tweak one or the other, it's just cleaner to do
Okay.
2. Yeah.
So my first motion that I would like to make is that I move that we approve the recommended community meeting schedule.
Second.
So do we have,
We need a first and a
we
second.
have a first and a second on the community meeting schedule, right?
And we do have some public forum on that too.
Can we know what the second motion is since we're,
Oh, the second motion is approving the timeline, the whole timeline.
okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew what the 2 different ones were.
So I want to take out the community meeting and vote on that and then vote on the timeline.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay. So do we have public forum on the community meeting?
So we have public forum, I apologize for that. We do have public forum for the superintendent search altogether. So should I withdraw my motion to do that first? No? Okay. So we have 2 people for public forum. First, we have Helena Rego. No? Okay. And next we have Lance McCoy. Please state your county residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Lance McColl, Knox County. I spoke to you guys last week, and some people said, you need to tell them that again. So here I am. I want to say that I think you guys are being too hasty with this plan. The last time we hired a superintendent, we had an interim superintendent who did a fine job of keeping things going while we did a careful search. We have many fine staff within the administration who could be interim superintendent while we took our time to do a careful search. And I don't think it's really necessary to take the aggressive schedule that you guys have done. So that's my recommendation. You know, I don't know, it's the old saying is, you know, you decide or act in haste, and you can regret at leisure. So I would encourage you to think about whether you really need to do all this fast. I think that's the only thing. I guess I do want to tell you that no, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes public forum on this agenda item.
Patty has a question. Patty?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Ms. Owen,
Could you talk to us a little bit about how the meeting schedule is expected to work during that day? I've heard from several classified employees who are concerned about that being at 1:30. Are we expecting anyone who wants to be there, or is it just a focus group? What exactly are we looking at?
Yes, so that was how we did ask that as well. So this recommended schedule is for the idea of people to come, but anybody can attend any meeting. So if someone can't make it to the 1:30, they can come to the 6 o'clock. The same questions are going to be asked at all of the meetings. It's just the recommendation was that they have it within those groups because they usually have similar themes on what they want and what they're looking for. So it just makes it that much smoother. But anybody can come to any meeting. Again, I just want to reiterate that she did request that board members only attend that first meeting and not attend the other ones, but you're free to go to wherever you like to.
can I ask about that? So they want us to come to the classified employee one?
No, we're going to the Betsy,
Okay, I'm just looking, I'm looking at these 4 meetings here. Are there more meetings am I not seeing them?
Online, there's one that's at 11:30.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's one in the morning that they recommend we come to. And then the other ones would be geared towards those other groups, but anybody is welcome to attend if they cannot make a certain time.
What
So-
time is the morning?
11:30.
Same place?
Yes, all the meetings will take place in the same location.
So the 11:30 through the 6 o'clock meetings, all of those are open to anybody that wants to attend them? Is that correct? I mean, like the one that says 1:30 classified employees, any classified employees that want to come can come to that, is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
And for anybody, and if people want to go to multiple ones, they can as well. Like, it's open. These are, again, it's segmented out like that because she said that usually themes come out of the same like-minded people within the group, so it just made it easy to break it down like that. But people are welcome to come to all the meetings.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would it make more sense to switch the 1:30 and 3 o'clock, do classified employees at 3 o'clock and central office supervisors and principals at 1:30? Because at least that would possibly, classified employees at an elementary school at least may have an opportunity to attend one, but if at 1:30, it's gonna be really hard for them to attend. Was there any thought as to, from the committee as to why the schedule was in this order?
Ms. Bound?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, because I have worked in the system, I asked that question and I was concerned. And Ms. Grissom said that actually this is when they normally do the classified, and it in the past has been the best attended of all of the meetings that were held that day. So I think she did bump it up maybe, or drop it down 30 minutes one way or the other. But her experience has been that the classified staff are the best attended meetings at this time.
Interesting, okay. And do we have a location on these meetings yet?
Yes, so I have been in contact with Knox County, and the Public Works Building on Baxter Avenue has a large space for us that they're willing to accommodate us and keep the building open longer. That way, it's centrally located to all areas of Knox County. And I believe it's on a bus line, is that correct too? So that way, people can utilize that transportation.
Is there plenty of parking, do you know?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McMillan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment in reference to what you were talking about as far as classified and when would be best to get them to come. And this certainly is not meant to belittle anybody by any means, but it's just human nature that I think if you had them come while they were basically on the clock rather than at close to the time they were going to get off from work, well, they, a lot of people would think, well, I'm tired from the day, I'm going to go on home, there'll be other people there. I guess what I'm saying is that if you had it, then you would get better attendance, in my opinion.
Ms. Bound?
Yeah, this might be a question for Mr. Thomas. With the classified employees, how are we working with the schools to be able to allow them to leave? I mean, is there a plan to be able to let that happen? Because I'm sure that will come up very quickly.
No, there's not one right now. Let's just saw this this evening, so yeah. But we'll make it available for folks to attend that want to attend. We'll work that out so that there's no problem work-wise.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm concerned that the letter really doesn't make it clear what the process is at all. So, It's the letter that's in the packet.
Okay, so what recommendations do you have to add the language to make it clear?
I think I would start over, because it just really says that, it says when these things are taking place.
Can you tell us which one you're looking at? Forum invitations?
Yes, proposed forum invitations. It says when these are, but this one is just, looks like this is just the community invitation from 6 to 7. And it's not really clear that they could come to one of those others. It's not, I think our staff is going to be very confused about when they are to be where, if they want to give their input.
So if you go down to the second one that's on the list, it gives a sample invitation, and I'm open to whatever recommendation, and I would like for us to make that today. So whatever you think to clean it up, let's clean it up.
I think if we're going to get specific about it, the location is not here. It also doesn't say that they could come to a different one if it was more convenient. So if that could be cleared up, that would probably help quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree that we need to be more specific about, this is put in there, this is a suggested time, because it will be more geared to those people, but they are welcome to come at another time. And I guess for like our employees, like classified employees, if they are gonna have to get off work, I guess I feel like there need to be some instructions going out at that time for I guess it's the 130 people that are the biggest concern. Central office, I guess, is a little bit different, probably worked, but especially for that 1:30 time, I think if we're going to put it out there, there have to be instructions on how they would actually go about being able to come.
I'll accept those changes, or those recommendations. Are we good there, Terry? Okay, cool. All right. Should I state the motion again?
Or your first one, right?
I move that we accept the proposed community meeting with the recommended changes in the invitations for the superintendent search.
Okay, so we have a motion and by Ms. Henderson, a second by Ms. Bounds. Or Ms. Satterfield made the motion.
And Ms. Henderson really needs to second it because she.
Okay, so we don't need,
first time.
okay.
So she's okay
So
with the change.
Ms. Satterfield made the motion. Ms. Bounds has seconded it. So are we done with discussion? This is,
The first time Ms. Satterfield made the motion, Ms. Horn seconded it.
Oh, I did?
oh,
I thought Ms. Henderson did.
Ms. Satterfield made a motion to approve the recommended meeting schedule, and Ms.
So
Horn
I
seconded.
need to accept the, so yes, I do. I'm sorry, I thought Ms. Ms. Henderson did. So sorry, my fault.
okay, so we
I'm
have the
good.
motion by Ms.
So it's-
Satterfield, a second by Ms. Horn.
It's a friendly substitute motion.
Yes,
Friendly
totally fine.
substitution.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Thank
So-
you, so sorry.
Right. Okay, so any discussion on the substitute motion to change?
I have a question, not really about that, but looking at the timeline, now, we'll attend these meetings, at least one of them, and we're going to take that information as well as other information and opinions of ours, and on December the 8th, we're going to use all that to adopt the criteria?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
But you're recommending that we go to the 11:30, all of us?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you. I would like to see some additional community meetings. However, I'm good with this schedule with TSBA. So I think under the second motion is where I would discuss some additional meetings. But I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Okay, so any more discussion? on this motion? By Ms. Satterfield and seconded by Ms. Horn. All right. Yes, Mr. Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarifying question. If students want to participate in this discussion for this new superintendent, they would go to the 6 o'clock community forum, correct?
Yes, if they want to participate in what TSBA has provided, they are open to go to the public, they're open to go to whichever one they want to go to. But the one that people do not follow within those categories, the public forum one is available for that one. But you're open to go to anyone that you want to go to.
And is there any specific, community input provided by TSBA that students can participate in?
One more time?
Is there any specific way that students can participate through this TSBA program, sorry?
There's a survey or the meeting, yes.
Those two things?
Those two options. And then whatever board member Owen's going to present for after.
Okay.
But within this system and in this process with TSBA, it's the public forum meeting for students and the survey as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we are voting on the community meeting schedule with the friendly amendment that you've made the motion, Ms. Horn has seconded, and I don't see anyone else with their microphones down. So all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Second motion I would like to present is that we approve the recommended timeline for the superintendent search.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Ms. Satterfield, a second by Ms. Babb, and any discussion? Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to see our timeline expanded, and I don't have a specific recommendation, but I would like to see, basically, instead of adopting the criteria on December 8th, I would like to see that moved out at least a month so that we can provide some time for additional community input and for student meetings. I think our goal in looking for a good candidate shouldn't be put in this box of getting someone quickly. I'm much more interested in getting someone who really wants to be here and someone we really want than someone who may be applying to be a superintendent wherever, and they might take some other position. If that's where they are, I don't think that's who we want. I think we want someone who wants to be here. So I think stretching out this timeline would be very valuable to us in ensuring that we have what we're really looking for.
Ms. Bounce?
Thank you. I'm in favor of keeping the timeline, but I thought, help me out, Betsy and Ms. Satterfield, if we weren't going to possibly have other meetings just like towards 1st of January or whatever. Was I incorrect on that? I mean, I don't see pushing it out. I think other meetings can be put. The December 8th is just to adopt the criteria.
Yes, so December 8th is to adopt a criteria that is very standard, so to say. There's room for more like that she can then put on the brochure that goes out to the searches, right? And so during that time that the brochure is out there, we can still collect we can have as many meetings as we want to. And so, yes.
So like, the criteria is not dependent upon these other meetings, so the other meetings can be taking place without messing up the timeline, and that still gives us an indication of what the public wants in a superintendent, but it doesn't necessarily change the board's criteria or the criteria that comes in through the surveys.
Mm-hmm. And I think that additional information that we could potentially get after the 8th is
Right.
information for us to make sure that we're looking for those things in the candidates that are presented.
So maybe schedule through whoever or however schedule some meetings in January before the selection of candidates, or even in December would be my suggestion.
Ms. Babb?
A couple of questions. I don't see the stakeholder survey on the timeline.
is it starting tomorrow, or?
Yes, so that's why if we are changing this, we need to sit here and figure the timeline out for the rest of the day because the website goes live tomorrow.
Okay, no, I'm fine with that. I just wasn't sure because I wasn't really seeing it on here. So the survey will start, and I do think, let me see, does it say on here when the survey starts and when it ends? If it doesn't, I think on this webpage, I think we need to be very specific of when the last date is for people to take it. That would be my one thing. And then this is just a question on the process, and I feel like the three of y'all have talked to Tammy a lot more. So recruit quality candidates, and then early February, it says select candidates. Who selects the candidates? So say we have 100 people apply, who gets it down to the three, or how does that happen, getting it down to the three that we're actually interviewing? Can y'all speak a little bit more to that?
To my understanding, TSBA will bring us 3 final candidates that the board will then choose.
Okay, so we won't have any sense of who else has applied besides those 3 people?
I mean, I think we can look through all of them, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we can
Well,
look
yeah,
through
I
everybody's
guess it's
resume.
not
Yeah,
closed.
correct, everything's open.
Okay, so,
And you,
Oh, go ahead. No,
well, if I may, she said in the very first time we talked with her, when she was on Zoom, she said that we could, if there were candidates that a board member or a board wanted to review that weren't in the top 3, that we could review those. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, you can pull them out, yeah.
But then how would we be able to move those to potential candidates for all of us to consider?
yes, I'm kind of wondering, like, and this is going a little bit to what Ms. Owens has talked about, and I'm also not trying to push the timeline. I mean, I actually do want us to move this along, but if we are having more community meetings that are going to impact who we're looking for and what we're looking for in a candidate, that really only lets us look at those 3 people with those criteria. Is that right?
So,
Because really, it's really the 3 that we're really going.
Mr. Dufour, can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think we had a conversation about that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the board's in charge. I mean, even though you have this search firm helping you out. And this happened the last search, as a matter of fact, because there was a certain number, and I forget whether it was 3 or 5, I apologize, but I mean, there were a certain number of finalists, so to speak. But, yeah. Okay. But once those finalists were brought before the board, one or more board members decided, hey, we want to elevate, another candidate up to the top. That can be done easily, and that just needs to be one board member asking that be done. And then, at that point, let's say it's 5, or in this case, it's going to be 3, and you say you wanted a 4th or a 5th. Not a problem, that's done, and then the entire board at that time is looking at, say, 4 or 5 instead of just 3.
If they all decide. Okay, I mean, I don't really have a problem with this, I just kind of want to understand it better.
Ms. Warren?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm assuming if we wanted to, we could ask for the top 5 candidates. So we may want to do that. We may want to say, we want to see the top 5.
Yeah, so the recommendation for the 3 only is because we have those full days that will be of the candidate going around and consuming staff and consuming school. But we can absolutely do 5. And then we'll have 5 days of board. So each candidate, if we did 5,
Okay.
each candidate will then come and present to us, which will be 5 days.
Right, so that is a lot if we get 5.
I almost didn't even know if we could do, we get their top 5 recommendations, and as a board, we make the decision which 3, to feel like we have a little bit
I
more
think that's a good idea.
ownership
Right.
of the 3 that move
Yeah.
forward.
I like that idea.
That maybe would make me feel a little bit better, that it's a little broad. And, there might not be, I've done some searches for other things before, and I mean, sometimes you don't have 5 that really get to that top thing, but I think that, I think it would be nice if there are 5 that are worth considering, that we're not having an outside group make that decision for us, and it could come to us, and then we ideally come down to 3, and honestly, if my thought would be as if we are as a group having trouble bringing it down to 3, we interview how many we think are really needing to interview. I mean, I don't want to limit us because of days, but I think have the objective of only doing 3 days of interviews. But don't cut somebody out just because of a 3-day limit, would be kind of my suggestion. That's just something I would suggest.
And I don't, Ms. Bounds, I don't know if you or Mr. McMillan.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I have that one question,
Okay.
but I have a couple other things.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and I think that's a good suggestion. So just a couple of things. I think that we should go forward with the timeline that we have. I would not be opposed to additional community meetings in January because I think the criteria that we're coming up with that we'll vote on in December is not going to vary tremendously from the criteria that we had the last time we did a surge, because it's a very high, it's pretty high level. So I think we're looking more from community members for additional comments on characteristics and things that are more, that we can certainly take to, into consideration as we look at those candidates. So I do think that if we want to schedule additional community meetings, I don't think that, moving any later in December is going to benefit us. I mean, I think as we have, anytime we have community meetings, we have so few people that attend that maybe if there are additional people who want to participate, maybe it would be better to offer one in January because it's at a different time rather than in December. And I think those were my comments. The other thing too that I just made a note of that, TSBA is, I think we've hired them so that we can lean on their expertise in this process. And if this is the time interims that they are used to working with them within, I think that's probably tried and tested. So I think we need to trust their timelines and their intervals. So I think those are my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Bounds?
Yeah, thanks. Virginia, I'm glad you raised that point because we spent quite a bit of time addressing that. And if you've ever done a search like that or even doing our student rep, sometimes you'll see a gap, like you might have the first 10 candidates are really close in scoring, and then there's a drop-off, and then wherever, or the top 5 be really strong, and then there's a natural break.
Right.
So we talked to Ms. Grissom about that, and she was willing to take that into consideration, looking at where those breaks occur in the quality of the candidates, and certainly bringing 5 if necessary. She just said that typically it works better with a top 3, but I think we could, and I think she indicated that that would be one of the things they looked at. So, like to your point, if you had 5, you're not going to knock one out just because you're asking for 3. If there were 5 that were really close in all of their expertise.
I do think, and I've never done anything as high level as this. This obviously will be the most important search I ever do, but I do not, because I think it gets very subjective at that
Right.
point. When you get those people that are at the top level, and if we just say 3, so I do like having, I don't mind shooting for 3, I just want the flexibility of sort of having that. If there are 4 that are just sort of very even, I don't think we should sort of knock one out because we're limiting 3.
And that's what she indicated to us when we met with her.
Okay,
So.
thanks. I just appreciate having that
Yeah.
flexibility.
Mr. McMillan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in reference to what was said there about, I don't really have a problem with the timeline, and you can have all the community meetings that you wish, but remember, once you get into this December, the holidays, you're gonna have trouble getting people to come, in my opinion, to come out. It's gonna be difficult any time you do it, but it's more difficult then, and, of course, I don't know if this would interfere with anybody that would genuinely want to come and express their opinion, but, on Tuesday nights, we'll have high school basketball games all across the county. Now, we also have them on Friday, but we're not gonna do it on Friday. You wouldn't get anybody on Friday night, practically, but, I want clarification on a couple of things here. We're gonna interview the candidates in mid-February. We're gonna select them in early and then interview them in mid-February and late February what does that begin second phase of consideration mean? Does that mean narrow it to, is that where we're gonna narrow it down to a certain number or what? I don't know what that phrase means in reference to this.
Yes, that's exactly what that means. So that 23rd date is, these are the candidates, let's start doing the interview up to 5, but those 3 days, are during that time. That you will then, we will make that vote. That's the time that the board votes on that, other candidates, yes.
Okay, and late February at that particular thing, we're gonna vote.
One candidate at a time, yeah.
Well, I mean, you said one candidate at a time. We'll interview them all one at a time, and then we'll follow that up with voting.
So from my understanding, the 15th, 16th, and 17th is when we will interview them, ask all the questions. And then on the 23rd, that's when we'll have another meeting to make our vote. And so that'll be all the conversations. I guess the candidates could be here, but that will be our discussion on who we would move forward with.
Put it on this.
How would you like it to be read?
Well, I mean, I just would like to see, I didn't look on that, what y'all talking about that, I didn't even know it was on there. As far as the timeline to the you know, that aspect of it. You said there were two things, this.
And the online, so you're wanting it to explicitly say board takes vote?
Well, just explain it a little bit more to the public, you know, as to what the process is. This, it looks really simplistic. It looks like you know, to me, now it's just me, maybe it's just me.
So on the bullet point where it says begin phase 2 of consideration, clarify that on what that actually means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you sort of clarified it, but, you know, but do you think the average person in the public out here would understand if they saw that?
I think it should just say board vote on candidates.
Well, if that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Interview and then, following interviews, vote.
No problem.
You know, we don't have to be real deceptive here. We want them to understand, I would hope. And one other thing, and I want to ask, it says, early March, offer contract, mid-March announcement. What's that like? You gonna give them a week to think it over, or how many days are you gonna give it? 3 days, 5 days?
I think that's more of the conversation between the search foreman. I mean, we can make our own, but that's a conversation with the search firm and then the candidate to decide when they want to take it. I don't expect the candidate at this level to immediately.
Why would it be between the firm? We're the board.
Yeah, so we can set the timeline. If you want to say you have to respond in 5 days, you can. This is the opportunity for us.
I would think, I don't care. I just want to know. And I think we should set the timeline.
Okay. So let's do it.
Not the board, not the firm.
Okay.
But,
So what date would you like?
It doesn't matter to me. 5 days.
Okay.
Well, I would think 5 days you could decide whether you want a job or not. You want the job or you wouldn't apply for it.
Mr. McMillan, do you think it would be acceptable to vote on when we approve that candidate, that we could decide when we want to know? Could we do it at the same time?
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. I'm just saying that it looks like it's been left out here kind of in the open space a little bit.
So that's
to me.
what I would propose.
Now,
Maybe
that may just be me, and if it is, I apologize. But
Okay. So, Ms. Owen, did you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Mr. McMillan. I would like to see actually on the website some explanation of what everything means so that there is some clarity for the public to understand what's going on. If we are not going to consider extending the timeline at all, I would like to see some kind of student forum prior to adopting criteria on December 8th.
And is that a student forum that you want the board to host, the search committee to host? How would you like that?
I don't think, it could be either one. I don't think it matters whether we do it or whether TSBA does it, but I think our students deserve to have their voices heard.
And so what I'm looking for in this discussion, board members, is if you have suggestions, also have like, what do you want? Because I'm open to whatever we need to do, but if you can give me the definition, the finite date, what you want, we can make that happen.
We can't make happen what I want to happen, so since that can't happen, since we're not, it sounds like we are not open to spreading out this calendar at all. So whatever kind of student forum can be put in before adopting the criteria, that's my recommendation.
Okay, so committee members, if you would like to weigh in on what that looks like, because we have the public forum and also the survey, so what would that look like from you all's perspective?
Can I ask if this would be a suggestion? I mean, and I'm not trying to cut out any students, but I would think it's more of our high school students that are gonna have more of an opinion than elementary and middle. I mean, that's my guess is who we're really seeking out opinions from. Not that I would want to keep a middle school or elementary school person from doing it. Is there a way, because this is the one thing I think about the public forums that we do. It's always hard for people to get there. And things like that, but we've got kids at school. Is there any way to incorporate at the high school level something at the schools?
I wonder if that's something that we can let our student rep lead possibly, because to give ownership of the role of that, and we work in tangent with that, and also whatever Christine.
Right, and maybe with the community meetings that you're working on with KF, is that maybe a possibility?
Maybe KEF would be willing to help out with that as well, with the student forums.
And Mr. Letsos is out there nodding, so that's a good sign.
So, Mr. Raymond, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that would definitely be a very good idea to have that direct student input and let it be clear to those students that, hey, you have this place to provide your opinion and input. Because I do have the concern where if you try to mix, in what we have right now, in the community forum where you're mixing students with adults, things like that, honestly, some students might be a little bit intimidated. They just don't want to speak out in that kind of setting. So it would be very good if we work out some kind of program, maybe at individual schools. That would be, I think, probably the best way to get as much student input as possible. If we could work something out like that, then that might be good.
So, yeah, I feel like we can work, and maybe you can work with Mr. Letsos at Knox Foundation and maybe come up with a plan. I think that's a really good idea.
Yes.
So, Ms. Horn?
Thank you. I think that's a great idea. And I just wanted to point out the importance of the survey, because TSBA, this is not going, from my understanding, and you guys that spoke with her about this can correct me, but from my understanding, this is to gather information. It's not a discussion. It's not it's just to gather comments and information. So the survey will be available. Tomorrow is what, November, whatever it is, 11th. So until December 2nd. So that's people have all that length of time to put those comments in. And it's really, that's a very effective way of communicating, because when you come and you're in person, yes, you'll hear what other people say, which is definitely an advantage. But those comments that are going to be in the survey are extremely valuable. That going through the last search, that's what I remember. I remember the pages and pages and pages of comments and reading through those and doing what we're asking TSBA to do, which is to look for trends and similar, ideas. So I think that I just don't think we need to negate the importance of that survey. We will get thousands of responses. We will get many, many more responses to the survey than we will ever get with people coming in person. So I just want everybody to understand how important this survey is. I mean, this is key, and being there in person, it doesn't, your votes or your voice is not going to be heard any more than the paper or the surveys that we collect.
Ms. Bell?
And speaking to that, and back to Ms. Babb's point, then on this superintendent search timeline, which I'm fine with, can we add there that survey will be sent out on tomorrow, and then put the date when the superintendent survey closes? Because I think that would be helpful to have on this timeline.
I think, yeah.
So in what I'm gathering, and so Carly, there she goes. Hey, Carly. So the input would be to clarify what this timeline means. I'm also connecting Carly with Tammy Grissom to have more one-on-one communication so that she will be able to tell her directly. And so before it is live, because what I'm not wanting is that it goes live and we have to come back and change and stuff. So before it's live, please get all of what you need and how you want it, because once it's live, that's what we're rolling with. So Carly will clarify all of these components as much as possible so that it can be common language to the public. That was suggested from Mr. Mike in Virginia. And then Raymond will take ownership of the student the student input conversation. So we're leaving that to you, Raymond, okay? What else?
Okay, I have a couple of things. One of them is very personal. I know at the last meeting, I had on the dates that we were gonna do the interviews, and then tonight is, maybe we talked about it last week, but I didn't hear it last week, the date that we were actually gonna do the voting, which is February 23rd, and I actually am getting on a plane that morning. I didn't know if there's any way we could do it on the 22nd. I would really like to be a part of that vote. That's just a personal request for me, if we could consider that. I wouldn't have made my flight if I had known at the time. So if we could consider that, I would appreciate it. On the survey, can we just make sure it's offered in Spanish and translated in Spanish? I just want to make sure that we are offering that. And then I guess this is maybe to Ms. Owen's comments, asking her, so do you feel like what we're talking about with the students makes you feel better about public meetings, or do you even want more public meetings? I just want a little bit more clarity on that. And then if we want more public meetings besides just the student ones we've talked about, I do think we need to give ownership to someone to do them. Otherwise, it's just kind of out there and nobody will take ownership. So just a little bit more specifics from you.
The feeling that I'm getting from community members is that they want to feel that they have had an opportunity to give their input, and they want to do that in person. So that is where that's coming from. I think my concern is having input prior to adopting the criteria. Because if we find out that there is some particular thing that is very important to students, but we don't find that out until after we've adopted that criteria, sure, we can use that in narrowing our candidates, but we've not put it out as our criteria. So I think if we are looking for genuine input from the community, we need to get that prior to making decisions.
Ms. Bounce?
So could we add a date in there? Well, I don't guess we can add a date before tomorrow, but have that, before school breaks for the semester, have the student get together with and decide a time and a location and get the information out to the students to have that before the, I don't know. There's just very small window there. December, I was looking after the 8th, but if Ms. Owen wants it before we adopt the criteria, it would have to almost be the first week of December or the last week in November. for the student meeting. Is that doable?
Mr. Jim?
I think if we can move fast enough, I think that is definitely doable. I guess my concern would be if we did move that fast, there is a possibility that some information might not get out there to where students know about that, know that this is occurring. And so if they don't know about it, then they're not going to be able to participate in it. So that would be one concern I would have if we did hold those meetings end of November, beginning of December. But I think it's doable.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so if you look at the next item, the job description that we used the last time we did a search is listed there. So my question is, when we adopt what we're going to adopt on December 8th, what exactly are we expecting to adopt? Because this document has the job summary, the essential functions, the duties and responsibilities, which I wouldn't think any of those would be different than what we were looking for prior. I mean, there may be some tweak, but it's not, those are expectations of the job. And then it lists education and experience requirements, which the last time we had this discussion, that was really the big thing, was the education and experience requirements. Those were the things that we had some conversation around. So in addition to this type document, what is it that we are expecting to approve on the 8th?
So we probably will approve all of that same, unless there's a lot of information that says we want we want somebody with the higher education, like terminal degree, right? Unless that's a robust information. But also on the 8th, she's coming to report out what she gathered from the community meetings and the survey. So it's going to be a full report, but the adoption of criteria, I don't imagine, unless somebody's really passionate about that, or we get a lot of input that says that criteria is going to change, because our criteria is aligned with what the state requires, and it's also very vague to make sure that we are able to get as many candidates as possible. So,
right. So I guess my question is, what do we expect? I'm not sure what else we're gonna, how we would, because when you put an advertisement out to, with a national firm, you're gonna have this exact kind of thing. So I'm just not sure what else we're going to get. I think that we will get personal type characteristic comments from community members, and I think that's what we want. We certainly want that. But I'm just asking for December 8th, for the purposes of TSBA, having something that they can then use to create a brochure, which that would include information about Knox County even. But what else would be in the documentation that TSBA is going to use? So do you understand my question? Like, I'm just not sure that, I think what we want, we can continue to gather past that date in January.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that will not push the student meeting, because I think that's the whole end goal, is to be able to put it out there, and it's got to be broad to get the candidates. So you can't get in the weeds that you want somebody with brown hair and blue eyes. I mean, you just got to do a general criteria, and then the meetings that follow up can become more personal characteristics of what they want. So I agree with you. I think just leave it like it is and have those work with KF and have those after that. So,
Ms. Owen?
if I confused you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Horn, I agree that the job description may not change, but what you said about those feelings from the community, if we are gathering that, but TSBA is making the selection, then there's a problem there, because that gives us information that they don't have when they are looking at those candidates. And there's nowhere in here where we have an opportunity to share that information with them. It's my understanding that the only information that they are taking in for their selection of candidates is information that they gather up until December 8th. So, if they are not involved in any of that, sure, we can use that when we get down to those last few candidates, but they can't use it in determining those candidates.
Well, I mean, I think that we can certainly give it to them. If they are not, they're selecting candidates on February 9th. If we've had meetings the month of January, that information can be compiled and shared with them.
Why don't we add that to the calendar?
Yeah, let's just add that. Let's
I
add
think we
it.
need to decide when we want to have any community meetings done by, and that by that date, which needs to be in enough time for TSBA to consider it. I mean, I agree with you. I think we want TSBA considering these same things. So I think we just need to look in the timeline and put that on there. Would that help you? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion.
I have a question
Okay.
about that first. So you're indicating that we host the community meeting as the board, or I also.
KEF.
KEF. So I also want us to also really think bigger and also have an opportunity to include the community on stuff. And so community has the opportunity to organize, and there's organizations out there that they can take the input and create their own meetings and say, this is what we want. I don't think that it should be us organizing, because we add a layer of dynamics to situations. And so this could be under KEF, community meetings, if they agree to that. So I'm okay with that, but I don't think it should be our community meeting that we hold as board members.
I
That's what
think
I'm
we need some clarity on how that information gets from that community meeting to us and to TSBA.
So from the community meeting that we're putting in place after the 8th?
Any community meetings. If other groups are holding meetings, and that's the way we want that to happen, then what guarantees that their input goes anywhere? How do they get there? They need to know how to deliver that information to us or to TSBA. And there's nothing here to indicate when or how.
So she did share that she's willing to give email address, and like anybody can call and recommend, like do what you need. So that's something we can add on there. If you want to give your input, send it straight to Tammy Grissom from Tennessee School Board Association. Is that what you're referring to? I'm looking for an answer, a solution.
Well, sure, but they need some kind of timeline. I mean, we can't just tell community people, go have your meeting and let us know, because that doesn't give them enough information. So they need some kind of timeline for when and how to deliver that.
Okay.
Mr. McMillan?
In reference to what y'all were saying there, it's fine to get community input, and we should, by all means, but some people don't really want to be involved in the process. They look to, we elected a school board, that's what you're elected to do. You approach it and find the best person. As a collective group, you all find the best person, and we'll have to live with it. There's all sorts of different views, and I hope we don't get so many different things that we start to conflict with certain things. What I wanted to ask was, and I don't know that anybody could answer it, but necessarily at this point, but when we're considering these candidates, anybody can apply, no matter where they live. And we're going to have, I guess, based on the timeline, we're going to have a little over 100 days, at least, between the time the person accepts the contract and the time they actually, Bob retires and they actually take over. Do we want to, or is it important that no matter where they're from, that they understand East Tennessee values, or does that matter?
I think that's something you can put in this. So in the plan that we purchased with TSBA, she's going to be able to talk to each individual board member. And so if that's a desire of yours, that's something you can lift up for sure.
Well, it is of mine. I don't care if they're from Alaska or, you know, wherever they're from, Minnesota or wherever. I would hope that if they don't know much about the values of Knox County, Knoxville, and surrounding East Tennessee, that they would make every attempt to familiarize themselves with it during that brief period of time. I think the taxpayers and, you know, people, parents and stuff, would expect that. I really believe that, no matter what the kids and, you know, or students, I should say, no matter what they think about it. I don't know that they would disagree with it, but, and I'm just saying that, you know. But I just don't want to get too many people. I mean, it's fine for everybody to have their say, and we can have people speaking other languages and stuff in the surveys and stuff. But the bottom line is that, you know, we are here to select the person who we think, as a collective group, will do the best job to serve our kids in Knox County. Thank you.
Ms. Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I have two ideas that may alleviate this community issue. I think one is having a deadline in the timeline for community input that's separate. So like all community input is due by whatever date. January 15th. And then KEF could produce a memo to the board and TSBA of the main community points. So that way it wraps it up and it's cohesive. If that makes sense.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So question about the survey. Are the survey results going directly, I mean, will they then go to TSBA for them to tabulate? So then they're going to need those before that December 8th meeting, right?
Yeah, so the survey will close on December 2nd so that she can report back from what the community says. So that could be a conversation. Do we want to extend the survey portion to that January 15th date?
I mean, I think that we have to, I think that for TSBA's purposes, it needs to close on December 2nd. So I think if we do anything else, it has to be in addition to that.
And so the meetings that, if we go with what Board Member Henderson said, the information that comes from those meetings will be used as our guide as board members to say this is what they're also continuing to tell us what we're looking for
Yeah,
in
like
candidates.
kind of secondary information, I guess.
From the same survey, is that what you're saying? I mean, no.
No, from
Just-
like these additional.
Just any other board members?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
meetings.
Or any
okay.
other meetings, yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Babb?
Yeah, I think we need to keep our timeline for the survey and the community meetings here. And if there's a way to get the student meetings at the different schools, I mean, I think that would be great. Because, I mean, I don't think any of us want to not hear from the students. I think it's just logistically. And I do like the idea of doing it at the schools because I think it would really get the kids to show up versus all of them. I mean, I have to say, the kids that are probably most opinionated and have the most thoughts on this are your active kids that are really busy after school. So, you know, I think if you can capture them while they're at school, I think that'd be great. So I think we need to keep the December 2nd thing, but I do think we all need to personally work at trying to encourage people to fill it out, putting it like on our social media, things like that. I would hope that all the schools, like our principals in there, I know they all send out memos to parents and stuff like that. I hope that all of our principals are encouraged to put the link for the survey in their messaging, because that's, I think, really how you're going to get out to the parents. And I mean, while I want to hear from community members, it's really parents that I think are going to care most and have the most opinions about their thoughts besides actual school staff. I mean, I think staff will, and I think they're a community that we're able to easily communicate with to get them to take this survey. But I think we talked about this last week. If we put the information out there, people have ample time to get a survey done. Just giving them 2 more weeks to do it, I don't think is going to get the people that really care about taking it to do it. I think it's just getting the information out. One other thing, and this is just kind of a minutia thing, kind of on our timeline, and this is probably a Carly Harrington thing, but if we can just put specific dates on it and then also check off or kind of change them to a different color or something as we have finished those items, that kind of thing, so that people realize that we have actually moved along in our timeline, I think would be helpful.
Okay, restate the motion, and were we, did we
All the
need?
friendly emotions.
So you've got
I
the
think.
date change.
Well, I have it in here to where,
We'll all listen and see if you capture it.
yeah, let's see.
So,
Hopefully I captured everything. Carly, I hope you took really good notes. Here we go. I make a motion to approve the timeline with the additional recommendation. Timeline clarification on the website, additional student-focused input meeting, and phase 2 consideration moved from February 23rd to February 22nd.
and Ms. Bab, you had seconded the original.
Yeah, do we need to add that January 15th deadline that you were talking about, or?
So that was part of the timeline clarification on the website, so all the additional notes and stuff will be on there, and I'll communicate with Carly on what those dates and stuff.
Okay, thank you. I will second the friendly amendment motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Satterfield and a second by Ms. Bab. Is there any more discussion on that? So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries.
All right, Madam Chair, I have one more in this agenda item, okay? Stress me. All right, so at the board retreat, we talked about getting a board to have a superintendent evaluation done. And so at our previous meetings, we have voted for $11,500. But if we want to get the additional the superintendent evaluation, this is a superintendent evaluation that TSBA will provide to us. We will need to increase that by $1,500. So I make the motion that we increase our payments to TSBA to $13,000 and any cost accrued by the candidates' visits.
What was the last part?
Cost accrued by the candidates' visits when they come into town.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Satterfield and a second by Ms. Bounds. Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to keep the evaluation process separate from the selection process. I feel like that just kind of muddies the water. So I'd be happy to look at the expenses, but I think it would be better to look at the evaluation separately.
I can accept that, but I want to see if anybody, I just know that that's what we discussed at the board retreat. And I agree with that rationale as well, but.
Ms. Bounds?
The only thing that I could think of is that it might be helpful for the superintendent or the people that are candidates that are considering coming to our system if they know kind of what they're going to be evaluated on. So I don't think we have to, I mean, it's not like we're going to be doing the superintendent search in the middle of the candidate search, but I do think it is very helpful because we rushed really hard to try to get the other one done so that Superintendent Thomas would have that information before accepting the position. So I think it's kind of crucial for them to know that.
I would agree, and I think that's what that discussion centered around was the candidate knowing how they would be evaluated. Ms. Swan?
Yeah, I agree. I think that I would be in favor of approving that $1,500 so that we can go ahead and get that rolling. And if we maybe change the motion so that it's two different motions, but I definitely think I would be in favor of going forward with that.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you. I agree that it would be helpful for the candidate to know that. My concern is really that we haven't seen what kind of evaluation they might put out. And if it looks anything like our board self-evaluation, that's concerning to me because that's so so vague and difficult to work with. And if we're going to end up with something vague and difficult to work with without knowing that, that concerns me. So I agree that it should be there before the candidates, the candidates should know how they're going to be evaluated in this district. But I have concerns about the evaluations that I've seen from TSBA.
Ms. Warren?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I spoke with Tammy Grissom today to ask her specifically about the evaluation, and she explained to me she's been working with Rutherford County, I think most recently, on their evaluation tool. And the way I understand it, and I haven't seen it in writing, but just in her explaining it to me, there are 3 sections. The first one is basically getting feedback. I don't know if it's in a form of a survey, but some sort of feedback from school principals and central office staff. So something in that realm. The second part was, I can't remember exactly, but the third part I remember specifically was directly tied to the strategic plan. So she explained it as basically a living document. So she actually, they had taken Rutherford County's strategic plan and tied specific initiatives for that year into the evaluation tool. So basically, every year you're looking at what will be the things that you are addressing this year from your strategic plan. So it sounds very different than what we've done. The middle section, I think, is probably maybe along the same lines as what ours would look like, or part of it. I don't remember exactly what it was. But the third piece was quite different than what we do. So I don't know if that helps any, but.
So just to clarify, this would, approving this would permit TSBA to develop or work with us to develop a superintendent evaluation model, but that is something the board would still have to adopt. Is that correct? So if we did not like the end result, you would still have a vote or say in whether that was approved or not.
Do we have a timeline for that?
No timeline for that, and I know what you said and mentioned, we'll still have to approve it, and I know a desire that was brought up at the board retreat was also to include a 360 survey, so that will be something that we as a board can put into the evaluation. They're just giving us the framework for $1,500 because the framework that we have we need a new framework in a sense, and so that's more, but there's no timeline, no.
But I think if it's going to be included in something for our candidates to be aware of, then it needs some kind of timeline to be sure that we have it in time for that.
Okay, would you like to make a timeline recommendation? Or would you like just Tammy to give that can be option too?
I'd like Tammy to let us know when it can be done.
I would think, looking at this, at least by the beginning of February, and really maybe, because if we're going to have to discuss it, I don't know if we're going to have a special called meeting about it or something, but when you start looking, if you look at when they're selecting candidates, we want them to be able to have something before they come in for their interviews, I think. And when you look at that, which is mid-February, that's where I'm just concerned, and maybe somebody needs to be in charge of talking to Tammy just about what they are capable of doing, because to me, we almost need something to us in January to almost have maybe even a special called meeting about it, to be able to have them be able to give it to the candidates. I'm just trying to look at the timeline.
Ms. Warren?
Yeah, I think based on the fact that this is also something that they do regularly, they're going to have a framework that they would customize for us. I wouldn't think that would be very time consuming for them to do, so I would think that by early February, just guessing, it seems like they'd be able to do it. That's the whole month of December, the whole month of January, so it seems like that would be reasonable.
I just want us to keep in mind that board self-evaluation tool, because that's concerning.
So, any more discussion on this?
Do we need to separate out the travel expenses and approve that too? Because you kind of added it in, but that's kind of almost a separate thing also.
It was part of our motion.
Ms. Satterfield, would you like to?
Do you want it separate, or do you want
The travel expenses? Well, I guess I was concerned if she was trying to move the evaluation out. To me, the travel expenses definitely goes with the search. I mean, that definitely fits with it. If, it's more if we're moving a different motion for the evaluation. I really don't care.
But I think you guys can go with it, so. I think you guys can go with it, so. So if there's no substitute motion, I'll go with the motion that was presented earlier. I move that we purchase the superintendent evaluation tool at the cost of $1,500 and any additional travel cost for candidates.
So we have a motion by Ms. Satterfield, and I believe Ms. Bounds, did you second that? Okay. So with no other discussion, all in favor? Say aye. Any opposed?
No.
One opposed? Motion carries.
I'm done.
Item 12I, discussion and possible action on Knox County Board of Education Policy C-121, Director of Schools Qualifications and Selection.
Second.
So motion by Ms. Satterfield, a second by Ms. Bounds. Do we have any more discussion? Ms. Horn?
What exactly would we be voting on, just to accept, like, what?
I guess we actually probably could remove it from, could have been removed from the agenda. If anybody had anything that they wanted to change and nobody seemed to, so.
It was, just to clarify, it was on there last week in case we did want to make any
Okay.
changes, but no changes were made.
So we don't even have to take an action. Okay, so moving on.
Item 12J, consideration of a resolution proposing a survey for potential learning cottages for COVID-19 related masking.
We do have public forum for this agenda item. Is Helena Rego here yet? Did she come? All right. Sachia Slusser? I'm sorry, I butchered that. If you can tell us your correct form of your name, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
It is not the first time it has been butchered. Stacia Slusser, Knox County. Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and Board. The reason I support and feel so passionate about sending an open-ended survey with an additional comment section to currently enrolled parents is due to some remarks made by a board member in response to my criticism of the inability of the board to actively listen to parents, find compromise, and implement a plan for all Knox County students. The member said, and I quote, "You will not find that listed in the state law regarding the school board duties and responsibilities," end quote. I disagree. That is the job, is to find compromise for all students. Can anyone here today answer what accommodations have the plaintiffs asked for? What were their requests and were they denied prior to the lawsuit? And what is the end result that these plaintiffs or the judge have for Knox County schools? The term learning cottage has been used at Hardin Valley Elementary School since portables arrived on campus. This is always what we have called them. Please send a survey to the currently enrolled parents and students to let them tell you what they want for illness mitigation in schools to keep their children safe. A concern last week was that parents will assume with a survey that it will be implemented regardless. Yet surveys for the future superintendent will not guarantee that they will have brown hair, have a doctorate of education. On December 2nd, an entire day is set aside for community engagement to hire the superintendent, but parents are not able to give input on the well-being of our children for what is going on now in our schools. On November 3rd, not one of you offered to work together to improve the only idea that has been brought to the table to get us out of this mess that we have been thrown into. This is a nonpartisan board, and I ask that you find compromise in order to help our children. Another concern was cost. As of November 4th, there were 31 unfulfilled educational assistant positions in Knox County. This gives the board roughly $580,000 of unused salary to make programs available for the students interested in a hybrid or a high-risk virtual option. Additionally, the unused salary could be used as hiring incentives to fill some of these empty positions that are so desperately needed. Please stop sending the legal department to ask for appeals that are clearly going nowhere. Instead, send a well-researched proposal that gets all students back into the classroom with their beloved teachers, peers, and much-needed fun. Finally, please do this for our kids. This is what they need.
Thank you. That concludes public forum for this agenda item.
Okay, so, did we do? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve this?
I make a motion to approve item J.
Second.
So there's a motion by Ms. Henderson and a second by Ms. Horn. Ms. Henderson?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit more since there seems to be a little bit misunderstanding about this resolution. I know one question that I got last week was, is this legal? I'm doing something that, is breaking the law. And I just wanted to put on the record, the law department was kind enough to come up with a memo that they circulated to everybody earlier today. And I just wanted to read the first couple sentences of that. The issue presented, whether setting up alternative learning sites for virtual students with a medical condition that places them at higher risk of complications from COVID-19 violates IDEA, ADA, 504, or other related laws. Short answer, no. So long as KCS provides an environment that is staffed appropriately and allows for an equal or greater number of students without disabilities to utilize the alternative learning locations, which is all set up in the resolution. At the end of the day, the judge has said we have a gap. So we have in-person and we have virtual. And he's saying we have this gap, and his solution right now is to mask everyone, when we need to be working on ways to fill that hole and fill that hole for our 60,000 students right now. This is just asking for a survey. It asks the question, who's interested? It costs $0 from KCS. It helps come up with a plan, and it's something that we can bring back to the judge. The law department has gone back multiple times to remove this order, but the board has taken no action. We haven't brought any resolutions. We haven't tried to fix any of our programs to alleviate this issue. Meanwhile, other large districts that are more diverse are lifting their mandates. Broward County, Florida is lifting theirs on November 20th. Hamilton County lifted theirs on Monday. So I'm just trying to find a solution to take back to the judge that can help alleviate this problem so our kids aren't en masse for at least the rest of the school year or into 2023. Thank you.
I don't know who was first.
I think Ms. Mounds was.
I was just going to say that after receiving the Q&A from Ms. Henderson today and the communication from the law department, which was very helpful, I intend to vote affirmatively for Ms. Henderson's proposal.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too am planning to vote for Ms. Henderson's proposal, and as I said last week, I appreciate you bringing something out of the box to review. The concern that I have is one that we would have to then look at if we decide we want to go forward, and that's what the speaker mentioned, the lack of educational assistance. That's not good that we have all these vacancies, because those are actually the folks who would be doing the job. That's the funding would go to educational assistance, which is what we are lacking already. So that's my concern, is how that would work out. But at the stage we are now, what you're asking for is a survey, which, as you said, costs nothing. So I'm willing to support that, and I think that it'll be interesting to see what we get back from that survey, so I intend to support it also. Thank you.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel like it's very disingenuous and unfair to our parents for us as a board to send out a survey for a program that we know cannot be implemented in a timeline that would make a difference. It makes those parents think that this is something that can happen within this school year, when we all know that there's no portable classroom that can just suddenly go up, and certainly not within this school year. I mean, even looking at the cost, it's not in our budget. We need to figure out where that money's gonna come from. But that's not even relevant, because we're asking parents to tell us whether they want to do something that we know we can't do. And that's just not fair to those parents. And I'd like to ask Mr. Oakes again to tell us how long, what kind of timeline, is he here?
No.
Okay, anybody can tell us, what kind of timeline would it take, even for one portable classroom? What would it take for us to determine the site, have that site cleared, and put in that portable classroom? What would be the timeline for that?
Thank you. The biggest issue that we're facing right now is the actual availability of the building units. We have 2 that are scheduled to be installed at Hardin Valley Elementary School. They were ordered in the end of October. They're not scheduled to arrive on site until the first week of February. And so the biggest issue that we have from a constraint is being able to get our hands on available buildings. We don't have portables sitting right now that are not being used, because that's what we were looking at, was did we have ones that we could relocate? There are none in the system that aren't being currently utilized.
Okay, so if we put out this survey, got all our survey results back, came back to the board, got Mr. McPherson to figure out where and how we're gonna pay for these, and then ordered them, we're looking at the end of the school year before we would even have the buildings, right?
I believe that's a true statement.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Ms. Bounds?
Yes, a couple of things. So if this appeal in the Sixth Circuit fails, we're looking into next year being still masked, according to Judge Greer. So I don't think it's unreasonable to at least pursue this. However, I know you've referred to Learning Cottage, but last week after the board meeting, I talked to Mr. Oakes about the availability of space within some of our schools. And there's not a lot, but there is some space available in some schools. So depending on the survey, if there were not a tremendous amount of people that indicated they wanted to do this, we could use that available space that's in the schools with separate entrances for these kids to be able to access it. So I don't think we shut it down just because we know, thank you, I mean, my district leads in the number of learning cottages in Knox County, so I'm very familiar with how much they cost and how many there are. But I don't think we can just not do the survey because of that, because like I said, if the Sixth Circuit denies this, then it could be spring of next year, and we certainly would have time to get cottages in here. But in the meantime, we could utilize some of the space in Knox County Schools, according to Mr. Oakes in my conversation.
Ms. Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that's correct. And, we may be talking about 20 kids. I've talked to some experts. They're saying maybe 25 kids. If it's 500, no, it's not doable, but it's worth trying. Haven't seen any other solutions come to the board.
Are you talking about moving all of those 25 children to one place from the whole county?
We're going to see with this survey. This is just for a survey, which costs nothing, to see what information we get back. And it's another tool that we can have in our tool belt to take back to the judge to show him that we are trying. And we see the issues that he has with the program currently not being ADA compliant, and how we're trying to elevate that to make it ADA compliant, according to his order.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This may be in the information, and I may be forgetting it. The survey, it does include what school the student is zoned for or attends, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that would be important to know. So if it's not in there, I would say, let's make sure it's in there so that we know when we're getting a response. It can be an anonymous response, but it definitely, we would need to know as far as zoning.
So I have a question as well. So is this a survey that would be going out to all students?
It would be going out to everybody, so that way we can see who's medically fragile, but it's also for everybody who is uncomfortable and wants to still be in a mass situation. And we have to open it up according to law to everybody as well. Is that correct, Mr. Dupler?
That's a good question. So the survey would be designed to gauge interest, and like you said, you're looking for the medically fragile, but because there does have to be a general education component, it certainly makes sense to open it up to see who would be actually interested. So yes.
Yeah, and we had talked, Mr. Dupler and I have had so many conversations, so Mr. Dupler, tell me if I'm incorrect in my understanding. When we talked about this, it would give priority to those who are medically fragile, since that is in Judge Greer's order. And then it would open up almost to a lottery system to those other equal amount of spots to the general education population.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Henderson. So, there's a couple of different options on ways to carry it out, but the thought is that it would at least be similar in some aspects to the voluntary preschool program, which is carried out in the way that you mentioned. There's the special ed component, and then the general ed component is more of the lottery due to the interest. So, thank you.
Ms. Owen?
Thank you. Has the administration had a chance to consider where they would take those education assistants from? Would they come from the zoned school? What program would lose the assistants that we have to cover those classes?
I think what we need to do, of course, is to get the survey back and then make that determination once we see how many people are interested. No, there's space, I think, at Carnes High School, maybe there's space at Holston Middle School. I don't know, Doug, are you aware of additional space at any of our facilities other than?
I'd have to defer to some other folks on that.
Thank you.
But it just depends on how many kids, and again, we'll do whatever the board votes here. We'll make sure we implement it, so.
Will there be anything on the survey asking how far parents are willing to allow their students to travel to be able to be a part of that?
I think we could include that in the survey.
Okay, so is there any more discussion on this? I'm fine with the survey in asking parents. I just would want to make sure that we are very careful in how it's worded, because I don't, there's a large response, it probably isn't going to be doable. My big concern is from the staffing side of it, because we are struggling we have vacant positions now throughout the district that we're struggling to fill. So that's where my big concerns are with it.
No, I completely understand those concerns, definitely. And I think, it's kind of twofold. It's, can we do this? If it is manageable, it's a solution. But it's also a tool to bring back, whether it's Judge Greer or the appellate court, of, look, here's what we're doing. Right now we're doing nothing, and, we don't really have anything to bring to the court. So it's another piece of, hey, here's what we're doing. We heard you, and, we're trying to figure out a solution from the board, and in good faith.
Yeah, I would just want to be very clear when the survey went out that it is just to gauge interest in that. You know, there might not be, we may not have the resources or even the staffing to do it, so that there weren't any expectations that it was going to happen because we sent out a survey.
I agree. It should be, the message that this is to gauge interest, for sure.
Okay. So any other discussion? So we have the motion. Ms. Henderson made the motion, and Ms. Horn seconded? Okay, so we probably need to do a roll call vote on this, do you think?
Ms. Satterfield?
Pass.
Ms. Owen?
No.
Ms. Babb?
No.
Ms. Horn?
Yes.
Ms. Henderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bounds?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
No.
Ms. Christie? That's 4 yes votes, 3 no votes, and 1 pass. Ms. Satterfield, did you want to change your vote?
No.
That's 4 yes votes, 4 no votes.
So the motion carries. No, it fails. It
You
doesn't.
have to have a majority vote.
Oh, you have to have a majority. Okay, sorry. Sorry, Ms. Henderson.
It was a second of glimmer.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So the motion fails, right? Okay. So we will move on to public forum. Ms. Satterfield?
Yes. We have 4 people signed up for public forum. First, we have Jennifer Taylor. Please state your name, county, or residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Jennifer Taylor, Knox County. Following Judge Greer's decision, I found myself at a protest for the first time in my life, fighting for my rights as a parent and for the freedom of choice for my daughters. There I met an amazing group of parents who want nothing more than to defend the freedoms outlined in the Constitution. We didn't know each other and were from all types of backgrounds, but none of that mattered. What mattered was our common goal, not anti-mask, but pro-freedom of choice. That means both the freedom for your child to wear a mask as well as the freedom of my child to say no. Every parent should be able to make that choice with their child. Unfortunately, there are some on the other side that don't feel the same, who believe that peaceful protests where we carry American flags and signs against mandates and walk our children to school shouldn't be allowed, who believe a group of parents and children who move to the side of the walkway to say the Pledge of Allegiance is intimidating, who, when told by school resource officers we are doing nothing wrong, decide to find another way to attack and get rid of us. That attack came in social media, a place built for lies and bullying, a place that can destroy lives. As you all know, anything goes on social media. One person can post a photo and say whatever they want about that photo, despite knowing what they're writing is a lie. And others will take that story and run, and that's just what happened last month. As a protest group, we all carry our phones and take videos during protests to document what we're doing for our kids, how our kids are treated when they enter the school, and the harmful actions of those on the other side, which have yet to be reported in any news stories. In this instance, a photo was taken of a member of our group as he dropped off his child at Farragut Middle and was posted to Twitter by someone who knows he has a child at the school. What do you think happened to that post? Social media took over. Someone responded calling him a pedophile. Then that got pushed along to others with comments just as outrageous, to include someone posting a quote they received from a board member sitting here tonight. So not only are complete strangers who know nothing about this man commenting that he is a pedophile, a pervert, and a predator after he just dropped his child at school, but now we have a school board member weighing in. Well, that man, I happen to know personally that he has raised 2 beautiful, strong, intelligent, and independent girls because he's been my husband for 18 years. Do you think he deserved what happened to him on social media because he was fighting for their freedom? Do you think our kids deserve to have their dad called a predator? Do you think a board member should have weighed in on this? This hatred and vitriol from the other side has to stop. We're not against those who choose to mask. And despite lies in multiple news stories, we treat everyone who walks by us with respect, both masked and unmasked. But we won't be intimidated into stopping our fight. So to any media here tonight, who's more intimidating? A group of concerned parents walking to school together with their children, are those on the other side who curse at us in front of our children,
Thank
give
you.
us the finger as they drive by, and attack an
Thank you.
innocent man on social media.
Next, we have Hannah Taylor. Hannah, you'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and county of residence.
My name is Hannah Taylor, and I live in Knox County. First, I would like to thank those of you on the school board who have fought for our rights in regards to masks and tried to tonight pass programs that would help. It is reassuring and inspiring to know that some of you are fighting for students and parents to make their own medical decisions and not have them forced on us by the government or a judge. Currently, there are 62 active cases of COVID-19 among students and staff in Knox County Schools. That is just 0.1%. In the United States, in the last 2 years, only 474 school-aged children have died. Obviously, that's not a good number, but thankfully in Knox County there has been 0. Meanwhile, there is a bigger problem that has been ignored. Depression and anxiety in kids grew by 50% during COVID. There are over 2,000 suicides a year in the U.S. in kids under 19. And in 2020, the suicide attempts by teen girls increased by 50%. In 2020, the CDC director said that there has been another cost that we have seen, particularly in high schools. We are seeing, sadly, far greater suicides now than we are deaths from COVID-19. I know from personal experience that isolation, segregation, masks, lost education, and threats of mandatory vaccines has hurt children far more than COVID has. I've heard from teachers, principals, and from some school board members that you can't do anything about it because you will be in contempt of court. To me, that's fancy for saying that you're afraid of consequences. You can do something. You can stand up and do what is right for the most people. History has made something clear. Change is not made by compliant people. Thank God for Martin Luther King. Change is not made by weak people. Thank God for Abraham Lincoln. We aren't asking you to stand up for something radical. We are asking you to stand up for freedom, for the choice to wear a mask or not. I've heard so many times that it's just a mask. No, it's not. It is government overreach. And if we don't fight now, we are setting a precedent and making it easier for the government to continue to push us around in the future. We have a good example right here in Knox County where Sheriff Tom Spangler wrote President Biden a letter refusing to comply with the enforcement of a vaccine mandate, telling him, "I will not comply with this unconstitutional order." Sheriff Spangler defied the President of the United States. Surely you can defy a judge for the health and education of us. Will you stand up, or will you make parents, teachers, and children like me do it for you? As Sheriff Spangler closed his letter, we are still the land of the free because of the brave. Please be brave as well.
Thank you. Next, we have William Taylor. William Taylor. William, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and county of residence.
My name is William Taylor, and I'm here from Knox County. And I'm here tonight to expose some of the lies and show you what the media hasn't really showed you. You may have seen this photo posted on the internet, the one my wife referred to a little while ago. This is a picture of me that was posted on Twitter, and I'm not a social media person, but this is what was posted by an activist parent who spoke at the board last month. And attached to that tweet, they said, "Why are we allowing this man to video children outside FMS student entrance while they walk into school at drop-off?" And she claims, "I don't have any students." There's my 2 daughters right there. This picture was taken outside the school as we walked in, and this parent who claims that their children are so intimidated and can't be around these people, well, this parent is videoing us constantly out there with her child behind her the whole time. Her child was so intimidated that spoke to the board last week. So we say the Pledge of Allegiance. She posts this picture of us, according to her, blocking the entrances to the schools, to Farragut Intermediate School in this case. And she goes right up behind somebody to take a picture to make it look like it. Well, this is the actual picture of what it looks like when we were saying the Pledge of Allegiance out there. There's plenty of room for people to walk by, and people were clearly walking by. But what you'll also see here is a picture out front of Farragut Intermediate with her once again taking video and picture, getting up in our face and taking pictures with her daughter, who does not go to Farragut Intermediate, who's so afraid and intimidated by everybody that she's parading through. So the lie that she posted prompted a firestorm, as my wife mentioned. Here's some comments. This is only a few. Is this a pedophile you are allowing to video our children? Why hasn't this potential predator been identified and questioned? We may need federal help. Can we give the students water guns filled with urine for, self-defense? Arrest that pervert from taking pics of those kids. And the poster, the original one that posted it, the parent activist, she went on and liked every single one of those comments. This is the one that's getting quoted in the newspaper, Knox News. Lastly, someone, my wife mentioned on the board here, had chimed in and weighed in too, saying, if someone can get a video of him and show exactly how long he's there, I can do something. Well, Miss Owen, here I am. What something were you referring to? I'm done.
Mr. Dupler, since I've been called out, may I respond?
A board member's allowed to respond, yeah.
Thank you. I would like to.
Please.
What we have been sent over and over are still pictures.
That's right.
And we have parents claiming that there are different people there for extended periods of time. But we have nothing that shows that they are there for extended periods of time. We only have still pictures. And still pictures don't show us that. And so I ask, if you can send us a video, we can do something. Well, they haven't sent us a video. And so there is nothing to do because there's nothing that shows that you were there for any extended period of time.
Thank you. That's comforting to hear from you. I do appreciate that, although I wish you hadn't have weighed in on it.
Thank you,
giving me
Mr.
input.
Taylor. Your time is
Appreciate
exceeded. Next, we'll have Sam Fitzpatrick.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name's Sam Fitzpatrick. I live in Knox County with my wife and our 4 children. 3 of them are in Knox County Public Schools. 1 of them soon will be. The reason I'm here tonight is to ask you to please block access from student computers to YouTube. I think this is a reasonable proposal, and I think there's 3 reasons I want to give you why I would like you to consider this. Number 1, YouTube is hugely distracting. As anyone who's been on YouTube can tell you, one video leads to another. Every time you watch a video, 10 more recommendations pop up, and to a 13-year-old, or 11-year-old, or 8-year-old that's trying to make the choice between doing Delta Math and watching clips from, Marvel Avengers, it's very, very difficult to keep them focused and on task. The second reason is that there's objectionable content on YouTube. And I know the school's filters catch the worst of it, but they don't catch all of it. And I just want to give you one example of what I saw on my daughter's YouTube video history. It was a video, something to the effect of how to look and dress like you're 21 years old. And featured in this video was a young girl, maybe 8, 10 years old, wearing a mini skirt, sitting with her legs crossed in a very adult pose. I don't want my 8-year-old daughter to have access to videos like this on her school-issued laptop. The third reason why I think this is a good idea is that YouTube leads to excessive screen time. And my wife and I, like a lot of parents, we really try and limit our kids' access to screen time. That's for good reason. There's studies out there that say excessive screen time interferes with sleep. It leads to anxiety. It leads to depression. It leads to health problems like obesity. There's one study that was cited in the Journal of American Pediatrics from 2019. It was about TV usage, but I think it applies equally to other screens. As screen time increases, academic performance decreases. All of this is to say that we know technology is part of our lives, it's part of our children's lives, but let's make technology work for us, not against us. I would ask you to please consider a top to bottom review of what online content is available to children and on school-issued laptops, and to please block access to objectionable or distracting content. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes public forum.
Okay, so meeting is adjourned.